Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby Babb. Today I am really excited to have on the show Tram Anh Nguyen from the CFTE. Tram Anh, how are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you so much, Toby, for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Listen, we've got in touch because you've been a panelist at one of our events before. I've been watching with real interest about everything that the Centre for for Finance, Technology and Entrepreneurship has been doing. It's an amazing movement. And recently, you put something up on LinkedIn that just compelled me to jump onto Amazon and pick up this wonderful book, the FinTech Job Report, which is available on Amazon now if you're watching. But it tells you everything about a load of things that I was just nodding all the way through it. I was there and looking at it and thinking, this is great. I've got to speak to you. We've got to have you on the show and we've got to talk about what's going on at the moment. So before we get into the book and why you wrote it and why you've put it all together and then everything in between and afterwards about what you're doing to drive this incredible industry further forward. Tram Anh, tell us a little bit about yourself and the work the CFT do, will you?
Yes, no, thanks a lot, Toby. So I'm the co-founder of CFT, the Center for Finance, Technology and Entrepreneurship. I'm based in London, and I'm also the co-author of the FinTech Job Report book, which is now a book on Amazon, as you said. My background is traditional finance. I used to be on the trading floor in New York, joined London. It was a while ago. I was also part of the team of emerging market for Dressner, made a shift as well on the wealth management for UBS, where I've advising clients in London. And a couple of years ago, I quit my banking job and become an entrepreneur because I saw a huge impact. I saw a huge gap, which is the people which coming from my world into traditional finance knew nothing about technology. When you hear about blockchain, APIs, cloud computing, all this new world for most of us was purely technology, but nothing to do with finance, which was really wrong. And so, of course, my co-founder being Huy Nguyen, who's been always very involved in the fintech industry, also launch the program of Oxford in fintech. I went, of course, to learn about it, and I saw, hold on, is the world of finance and fintech is really, it was 6 years ago now, is really going to change the way that people around the world will have access to finance. I want to be part of it. But I saw that, instead of perhaps having it, of course, knowledge is there, but not a lot of people knew about it. So that's why we launched CFT, which is today an impact educational platform in fintech and in digital finance to really help people to get the right knowledge and skills and to help talent build to skills through our learning training programs online, and having people from all around the world to have access to the knowledge so that they can get opportunities, either career progression in financial services or being themselves, fintech entrepreneurs in their own country. And online education is the best tools for them to have access. So that's why CFT is there. It's been set up for now almost 5 years. We've trained 100,000 professionals all around the world. Wow. And really trying to create now a community so people can really be together and be part of the future of finance.
The future of finance is really interesting because I think it hinges, doesn't it, around human capital. It hinges around people. I was at a show this morning where everything is looking at the future, and I think for a long time tech has been at the core of that, right? And we've spoken about how tech's going to change the future. We talk about the march of the machines, we talk about AI and robotics and everything like this. And I think there's sort of almost coming to terms with the fact that humans become less important than technology. But in my mind, it's the classic piece of humans need to drive that movement, and humans need to drive that technology. And we have a real brain drain of people in this space of where you know, as I think I said to you before we were shooting, this is 22 years now of me working in recruitment within the financial services sector. And over that 22 years, I've seen more and more demand grow. But at fever pitch that we're talking about in 2022 at the moment, it is extraordinary about the talent gap that's coming into fintech. And I think, the one thing that sort of potentially holds back the whole process of growth and innovation and the dynamism of the sector, and you were telling me some extraordinary numbers beforehand about the amount of unicorns that are coming back up. The one thing that takes that off course is the accessibility of it. And we've had some really interesting discussions on the show about the accessibility of fintech. And what I think that the FinTech Job Report does, what I think that the work that CFTE are doing, and what I think that's really important, and I know that you're evangelical about, is just ensuring that we can improve this talent gap into fintech. So I'm going to explore that with you over the course of today's conversation. But first and foremost, let's go back to the FinTech Job Report. I love the strapline underneath it where you say technology is, and I read a quote, technology is eating finance. Which I love as a headline. It's sort of got the clickbait there to get everyone straight into it. So when we talk about the FinTech Job Report, tell me first and foremost the motivation behind that. Tell me why, and tell me what we can find and what people can expect to read as they sort of leaf through this excellent book.
Yes, no, thanks a lot. You are so right. You are so right by saying that, and I think we're totally aligned. Is that fintech industry is really not niche. It's a growing industry. But I'll share with you much more about why the book and why we're doing what we're doing. But I always go down and I keep sharing it. And why we say technology is eating finance is because there was a quote before by Mark Andreessen who famously said, software is eating the world. And which was really concise, short, powerful way to summarize one of the biggest trends transforming our world. And for me to really summarize what's transforming our industry, which is finance, I could really use the same analogy, which is simply say technology is eating finance. We could use all the ramifications from the statements, from business models to operating models, from who is doing finance services, and also perhaps to the role of a bank. But what's really care about for us at CFT is one question. And the one question is what you said is that, but what about the people? What about the people? And in this tech world, a world driven by tech-driven finance, how do people adapt? How do people adapt? That they are traditional people and they see technology coming to us, they shouldn't be scared. And how do you make sure that they can embrace those jobs that are being created and then they can really be part of the future? So the book, why we did that is that because we've created CFT ago, what is clear is that we are witnessing a very quick and fast transformation in the skills required in the financial services and in fintech. Even, in very large organizations today, you hear technology is one of the most skills that people are required. But why we did this FinTech Job Report is one thing. We see that the fintech industry is not niche, is a huge industry. Do you know that it's 38% of the whole financial services? So it's huge. Fintech industry, from the book, what we're realizing is if you compare the financial services on its own, is a city. US is employing 450,000 people. London, 400,000 people. Fintech, 350,000 people. A lot, so it can be considered as the third largest employer in the financial services. If you go deeper, and this is what we've done, is that we connected with the 225 largest fintech unicorns around the world. We've connected with them, and my question was, what are the jobs are you creating? So this is something that no one has done it before, because we saw that gap, is that we have analyzed 40,000 new jobs that didn't even exist a year ago. What are those jobs? What are the job posting that the people should be aware of so that people can know how to transform themselves? What are the skills needed? What are the competencies needed so that people can have a real taxonomy of those jobs? And as I see, and this is what we do on a daily basis at CFT, is that we are monitoring all these new fintech unicorns. So when we launched the book a couple of months ago, 225 fintech unicorns today, and it was, we are seeing 8 new fintech unicorns in Africa. 2 weeks ago, 1 in Indonesia. Last week, 1 in Philippines. It's growing. And what we see by talking to them is that the fintech unicorns are emerging more and more. And of course, you know, UK are being the center of fintech for many, many, many years. So a lot of people are looking at the fintech, but there's leapfrogging. There's now, you know, the fintech is really, really global. A lot of companies are emerging on a daily basis from all around the world. And one thing that is in my mind, how do you find the talent so that you can grow your company? And this is a burning need from all the companies in fintech all around the world, including in the UK, but everywhere around the world. And the knowledge gap is widening. There's so much you need to learn and to get access to really do your proper job. And how do you do that? My view is that university are not doing their job. They are not teaching what is in need. What do you need to learn so that you can really apply very quickly on the job? And so what we are doing is that we are doing this big, massive taxonomy of jobs. What are the skills you need to get and the competencies you need to achieve? And so to summarize the report, just so that people, you know, can also have a chance to
teaser
access to the, and it's something that for me is very important. It's summarized very well, is that technology is one of the most skills that is in demand. If you don't understand technology, I think it's going to be very, very hard for you to get any jobs today. And I was very, it was an eye opener to me when the team, you know, pull out all this data, is that is much more tech than fin. I would thought that to get into a fintech job or any job today, you need to understand much more finance. But today, 20 or 30% of more than that, sorry, it's technology. You need to be very much technology fluent. You need to understand to use, not necessarily to understand how to code, but to understand the vocabulary, to understand how it really, really works. So for me, it's about having, of course, some foundational hard skills, knowledge skills, knowing about what is an APIs, machine learning, blockchain, all this, you need to learn about it. But much more than that, as you said, you know, AI is coming. There's a lot of technology coming. You need to develop other skills. And soft skills are also very important, which are teamwork, collaboration, working with people from totally diverse background, adaptability. Another thing that is really, really important, and perhaps you can also tell me if it's true, but by asking the questions to the companies, what they're really looking for is people that can really think like an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, right? Because I think that there lies a fundamental issue there around fear. So I think some of the issue here, and again, I'll throw this back to you, is I think that you know, the financial services is traditionally a very conservative industry, and within that, there's various layers of people with, you know, who are trying to, in many ways, keep their jobs at various different phases. It hasn't traditionally been an industry that's backed a lot of entrepreneurship. You know, there's the classic saying, "If you never get fired for hiring IBM," which leads to a whole thing there about you never get fired for hiring the right people from the right backgrounds, and it's left a real issue around diversity in the face, diversity in the space, diversity of thought, diversity of people, diversity of thinking, of backgrounds, of every, just about every single aspect. So you have a really conservative thought process about we need to hire someone who's come through from the finance background. And I think it's improving, but there's been a bottleneck of people coming into it saying, right, you need to do this because this is a highly specialist. There's been an ego and an arrogance around hiring in the space, where they've said, right, we need people who can do what we're doing, because if it messes up, it's costs hundreds of millions of pounds, particularly in capital markets in the financial technology area around there. So there's all this pressure that comes into the hiring decisions that means that people don't want to make a hire that might have the ability to move and create something different. That said, I think the digitalization of the last couple of years and COVID to an extent as well has led to this increased appetite for people to think differently around what they're doing. We've seen scaling businesses move with more money coming into the industry and more necessity to, and there physically isn't the ability to have people who've done the same job move straight over to it. There's just not the talent pool for it. We've had graduates come out who necessarily haven't been backed over 2020 to enter the industry. And so we've got to start thinking there a little bit differently. So we've mentioned a lot. You mentioned beforehand there about the tech skills that are necessary, and will you get to have a future, to future-proof your career. I absolutely agree that technology skills. I was speaking to my 13-year-old or 12-year-old as she is now. When it goes to air, this might be a 13-year-old daughter. I was speaking to her about the choices that she can be making about her next subjects as she's looking to move into her GCSEs and such like. And I think it's, I encouraged her massively to really follow that IT piece, because I think there's so much opportunity for technologists within that, and so much need for diversity within it as well. But I think coming back to your point there, and this is so important, I think, for us to get right as an industry, is those human aspects that come along the technology side have to marry. This isn't machine. This isn't man, this is man and machine working together. And those entrepreneurial traits that you're talking about need to be invested into. And I think people are starting to recognize that because someone hasn't come through from an Ivy League background, who hasn't necessarily worked in a financial, in a bank for 3-4 years beforehand, doesn't have the same sort of credibility as someone who might have come through a completely different route, who might have worked in e-commerce, or might have worked in retail, or might have worked, as you were talking about beforehand, as a doctor, a lawyer, or anything else in between. But who's got that appetite to learn, that fresh set of eyes, that new thinking about what they're doing. And I think that makes a really, really interesting view of what the future of finance might look like, of what the future of people in the space might look like. And the more people are open to people who are transitioning their skill sets, I think the better the industry is going to become because of it. And is that something you're seeing, Tram?
Totally. So it's really what we're seeing, is that today, when I have the wrong assumption when we set it up, CFT was to reskill, upskill people in my industry, which was finance. Today, with COVID and with the pandemic, it's just reset button, and we are seeing a lot of people, actually much more than people in finance, coming to learn about fintech. And those people are really coming from totally different industry. So they're coming from, we're seeing people from the tech industry, a lot, much more. Why? Because they're seeing fintech as a growing industry, and people from the tech industry have never really learned about finance. And so for them to get, into a fintech position, they need to understand what is the fintech industry, how it works, etc. So we are seeing much, much more people from the technology background coming and wanting to get into the fintech industry. We're seeing people that the lawyer, we're seeing a consultant, we're seeing people from biotech, health tech, a lot of people from totally different background today, saying that if they want to build themselves, entrepreneurs basically, who are basically coming and having had, they had to set up their own company, being an entrepreneur, and they realized that if I don't understand the payments, if I don't understand fintech, I think it will be very hard for me to launch my own company. So we're seeing a lot of people who wants to basically get those knowledge very fast, so that they can apply either because they want to launch, their own company, or because they see that they need is there. So diversity in terms of gender, we are seeing that a lot, because at CFT, out of, the 100,000 we have, helped to accelerate the FinTech learning, 48% are women. I'm really pleased because when I was on the trading floor and 20 years back, in my industry, which is non-diverse, today, there's a real appetite for women to see, because they see FinTech as an industry that can really be creative, people that is not necessary, because we are in an industry that is building. So we need people who understand finance, but not necessarily. We need people in sales, we need people in marketing, we need people that are creative. So I really see, this FinTech industry as an opportunity of a decade for a lot of people, either for women or for people from diverse backgrounds who's never had the experience to learn about finance, today get into the industry and grow there. And my job is really much to see, and I'm really pleased when for example, we partner with some of the FinTech companies, and I always say, but what is your background? And people say, I've actually learned history. I've actually coming from language background. I actually learned about, technology. People from really, really different background coming into the FinTech industry, and the FinTech industry is welcoming them. So that is really changing the face of finance, and we want to do much more by bringing awareness that there is opportunity in the industry is looking for talent, but it's about, bringing the knowledge really quickly, up to speed, so that a lot of people can start, making a career in the industry.
And it's so important, isn't it? Because look, there is this talent gap. There's people are deeming it the war for talent, the talent gap in FinTech, and it is this looming cloud of the rapid acceleration, the sort of numbers you're talking about, the unicorn status, is that the banana skin that's waiting to be slipped on is just accessibility of talent, and I think a lot of that, you talk there about the remedial aspects of the universities, but also there's a whole there's huge generations of displaced people who can transition across through the right adult education, and putting the framework in to be able to upskill is something which I know is very dear to you. So talk about the different, you mentioned before a few of the different backgrounds, and I think the mission could probably be termed as changing the face of the industry and the people within the industry. I know you've got government backing. I know you've done this on a global basis. I know you're talking all over the world. Give us some examples. Give us some stories, and I love hearing this, because I know you've spoken about some amazing things that you've done. Yes,
no, thanks. Yes, it's very much. I think we are in this urgency. We are in this urgency of upskilling and reskilling. I think, I must say, when we set it up CFT, we were called by, I give an example because I think it will speak and people will understand much more, but we were called by, as an example, by the Singapore government, who have called us and basically said, as a country, technology will be eating a lot of the job, and if we don't put a focus on adults' education, I think a lot of people will be left behind unemployed. And as a country, we can't have people left behind. So let's put a program to upskill and reskill professionals and get them into the job of the future. So, of course, we've been working with them, and all our programs are granted subsidies so that people can have access to a program in FinTech, in AI, payments, open banking, extrapreneurship, which is a program to help people to think like an entrepreneur. These programs are actually subsidies. So if you are, for example, Singaporean, and you are coming from a health tech, doctor, you are coming from an industry that is really, really different, insurance, for example, and you want to really join the FinTech companies, you can take the program almost for free, and you get accelerated into your journey, and you can even be placed into FinTech startup and paid by the government so that you can accelerate your learning and apply very quickly. And those people, after a year program, they get a job. Those are really demonstration of reskilling and upskilling. And we are doing much more on this because there's a reconstruction we need to help. There's this reset moment where we need an alignment between governments, organization, ecosystem to really help a lot of people that are really unemployed or they really want to change career because after a couple of years, you know, in the industry, they've been, you know, the COVID has kind of made them to want to change. But what I want to say is that the fintech industry is not necessarily looking for geeks. I'm not a geek. People don't have necessary to be really technology savvy. Why am I saying that is that we have so many women or people that are saying, I'm scared of technology. I don't want to touch AI. But what I want to say is that we have so many women that are coming and say, Chaman, I'm having my years of experience into marketing. And actually at CFT, we just hired someone. She's a woman returner. So a woman returners, she was left, she quit her job because of children. She couldn't find a job. She didn't want a job. She had some years of gap. She's saying that the fintech is an industry that could perhaps, be a good industry for her because of financial inclusion, because of the purpose, etc. She learned with CFT, and now today she's part of a company, and she's in charge of partnership. But what she's really improving is not necessarily becoming geeks, but she knows how to use the tools. And when I want to say, and my message to a lot of people, and I will probably quote a global head of innovation in AI for a bank, he said, today we have years and years of how to use AI. We are not asking people to create AI. AI, we know how it works. But it's like when I was on the trading floor 20 years ago, if you don't know how to use Excel, it's going to be very hard for you to do a job in finance. If you don't know how to use AI, it's going to be very hard for you to do a job in finance or in fintech. It's like making coffee. There's this nice Nespresso machine who help you to make coffee in a better, cheaper, faster way with very nice, the same. They're doing the powder and manually. AI is there for you. So I encourage anyone today to really embrace technology, know how to use it, not creating it, and it's not difficult. You need to just go and do it, and you will see that huge opportunities will be offering for you. So this is what we do on a daily basis, helping governments to really onboard people and really helping them to make that jump into job of the future. We are also working with the government in Abu Dhabi, where we are supporting scholars. So 100 scholars, women, who have been left behind, unemployed, and today accelerating through our learning. And in a year program will be accelerated so that they can learn about fintech, learn about AI, data, all the skills necessary for them to get employed. And hopefully by the end of the 9 months, they will get an opportunity. And same for people that are perhaps not really privileged to get access, but the message is huge opportunities are there in the fintech industry and to anyone. So really welcoming, everyone to get into that industry. We're welcoming talent from every background.
I love that, and it's so important, isn't it? It's that accessibility is a message which I keep on pushing, yes. And I encourage people who are watching and thinking about their talent shortages, just to think a little bit more creatively around what happens and what the opportunities are for them. And once they start doing that, there's huge opportunities evolve from it. I've got my contents page here in front of me of the book, and I looked to it about the skills of content of fintech, the jobs of fintech. We know it's a great employer. We know the growth in the space, which is just phenomenal. And I think you put here the ideal fintech candidates and break it down into engineering roles, IT and operations roles, data science roles, product management roles, design roles, marketing and communications roles, sales and business development, partnerships, risk and compliance, core business finance. I think that's a really, really important thing to say, that when people think fintech, they think linear, They think software engineers, they think developers, they think high tech, and they move away from, from the romance of it or the fear of it. They think, right, it's tech. You mentioned geeks earlier on. There's a stereotype around what we're talking about. But when you just even say that list out loud, you recognize about how many different options there are, and there really is a skill set for everyone within the space. And I've seen so many different backgrounds really thrive within it, and so many people from different areas come in and recognize that this is such a bigger world than people give it credit for. And if we can keep on pushing that talent into it and recognize there's companies there that will invest, companies there that will train, companies like yourself who can help people get up onto that ladder and move that through, and then see them enter the workforce and do it. I think we're at the very tip of the iceberg about what this industry can do and where it can take it, and I think it's so exciting. I think we're in for the next 10 years of the industry. I think that we've seen enormous digital evolution in it, but I still think, and I say this a lot, that finance isn't at the absolute core of technological innovation, and it should be. So when we can get that right with the work that CFTE and others are doing, and we can have things like this, which just showcase again how accessible and how great this industry is. That's why I'm so passionate about making sure that as many people hear about what you're doing as they possibly can, because we're going to need to keep on seeing that talent arise. Yes. Tram Anh, we've been talking. I could talk about this for another 4 hours with you, and I'm conscious of time. Tell me, who should be in touch with CFTE, and how should they get in touch with you?
Yes, no. First, no, thanks a lot, Toby, because what you just said is exactly summarized the work that we are trying to do for the industry. And the FinTech Job Report is 40,000 new jobs. And as you know, FinTech there will be more and more. We are just at the beginning. It's really at the beginning. The next 10 years, there will be more and more opportunities. And as we see, companies emerging, we will update those jobs, and hopefully it will help governments, organizations, and really create job seekers, students, professionals, to really map their pathways into job of the future. It's downloadable on our website for free, so we're giving this for the community, but you can also buy it on Amazon if you want a real copy. We wanted to support an organization, a charity organization, so if you buy the book on Amazon, all the proceeds of the sales will go through EPIC Foundation, which is a NGO, an organization that we really love, to help the youth to have access to education globally. So all the proceeds, if you buy the book, it will go to EPIC Foundation. And to reach out to me, you can reach out via LinkedIn, where I'll be very happy, if you have any questions, or if you have any, my team is there and will be very happy to support you and help you. If there was one thing I wanted to perhaps share before, is that we are really vocal about adults education, but I want to welcome discussion with you, with your audience. Is that last year we saw a big gap that was something that was an eye-opener to me, and for CFT as well, is that 80% of students today don't have work experience. They don't have a FinTech internship. It was a great eye-opener for us. At CFT, we were looking for interns for ourselves. In London office, we're looking for 12 interns, but my co-founder was posting it on LinkedIn, and in 4 days, he received 1,000 applications, which was for me a big eye-opener. There's a huge demand for internship in FinTech, but the students couldn't find any. It was really, really hard. It triggered our need and our desire to help even more, that we've decided to create a global FinTech internship. And we did it in a very short period of time for 1,000 students around the world to have this ability they came from 50 countries, 48% women, trained in FinTech AI platforms, learn about digital skills, soft skills in teamwork and communication, work on real case studies by leading organizations, the largest FinTech startups, mentored by hundreds of 50 experienced professionals from the alumni community. And it was a really eye-opener for us, because CFT and all the partners involved, it was an experience to learn from and be exposed to the views of such a diverse and motivated group. Collectively, we all got much more than we expected. The students now are part of a group of 1,000 students, and they have that work line experience on their CV. So they are talent, be in Africa, India, Asia, US, UK, everywhere. They are part of a global community, and we want to do more. So we are repeating the exercise. We did a report based on our finding of the methodology of how to use technology to bring education at scale. We're giving back to the community. So whoever organization or association wants to do the same, you are more than welcome. We're sharing our methodology of education at scale, could be in any industry. But we are doing the same, another global FinTech internship. So if you are students, please apply, because this could be an opportunity for you. If you are FinTech companies and you want to support by giving a case study, get in touch with us. If you are an organization who wants to sponsor, help, get involved so that we can do a much bigger impact, I'll be very happy to discuss with you.
That's absolutely incredible. And I think it circles back to what I said at the start. This isn't just a nice thing that you're doing. It's a vital thing that you're doing to this industry. And I think the work that you and various others, and I'm seeing more and more sort of work in people recognizing this opportunity, it's wonderful to see that the traction's happening to make sure it is accessible, that we do have the next generation coming through, and we're seeing this great industry continue to prosper for it. So Tram Anh, I've loved this. I knew I would. I was really excited to have you back on the show and to be talking to everyone about it. Well done on the book. Well done on everything else that you're doing as well. And thanks for joining us on FinTech Focus TV today.
No, thanks a lot, Toby, for having me. It was great to be part of your series as well. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. No, I really appreciate it. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon on another episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.